Today we're going to modify the Weber Smoky Mountain Cooker to accept the Inkbird smoke controller. Now this is basically a PID style fan that runs with an app on your phone, and these things are made to work with your smokers like an Acorn or Komodo grill, those big ceramic ones. But I like to use the Weber Smoky Mountain, and I know that one of my favorite competition grillers definitely uses a PID style fan, so I want to see if I can make this work on this one. So first off, I went ahead and took the insert plate that goes inside of the air intake vent, and I'll go ahead and show you a picture of one of those air intake vents, and then I'll show you a picture of the adapter, so that way this can plug directly into the side of one of those Komodos. But the thing is that we don't have one of those, so we're going to have to modify the connector to attach to the Weber Smoky Mountain. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some pictures of me using the drill press to drill a couple of holes in the side of that connector, so that way I can screw it directly to the side of the Weber Smoky Mountain. Now you can see that I just took those to the drill press, and you can do it with a regular drill. Just remember to hold it real carefully. Don't crush it, but you want to hold it carefully so that way it can't spin around when you break through that metal, because the metal has a tendency to do that, and if it does that, it can cut your hand really easily. So do not hold it directly. Use either a vise or a pair of pliers, or in my case I use the channel locks on the drill press, and the drill press runs slower than a regular drill. It has less kick to it usually. So for me, it worked out fine. I just punched 2 holes in the side so that way I could fit the screws in there. So here I have that piece now, and I'm going to hold it up close to the camera here in a second. But what I want you to see here is that there's a hole here and a hole here. And normally that would go right on the air intake, and that would be it, and you wouldn't have to modify it at all. But because we're putting it on a smoker that it was not intended for, we have to make these modifications. So let me bring that up to the camera real close here, and you can see where I drilled those 2 holes. And I measured it and marked it, but when I started the drill bit, it slid a little bit, and so it wasn't exactly perfect. But I don't think this is a job that has to be exactly perfect. Now, when we mount this, if you want to, you could either use some heat gasket from Lava Lock, or you could use some Lava Lock RTV, which is what I usually use on all my offset smokers when I assemble them. Now, I'm not going to do that right now. I want to make sure that we test the process and see if it's going to work. And I tested it on another smoker that is not as well sealed as this one, and it didn't work. And I believe that's mostly because there's just a lot of gaps and cracks on that other smoker. But on this one, it is known for being very, very airtight. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a drill, and we're going to get started on doing the placement. Now, if you wanted to, you could make a piece of tape and do a template out of this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and get down there and drill it, and I'll show you kind of how I'm going to do that. When you look at the Weber Smoky Mountain, you really kind of have 3 pieces. You have the bottom, which is where the charcoal burning happens, and then of course you have the lid, and then you have the body right here. And the whole thing is that the cords go in through here, so you want to keep this attached to the same piece, so if you have to remove it, you don't have to worry about that. Now, hopefully this will work out that way, because the air intakes are actually a little bit lower, and I think that that could be an issue, but we're going to try it like this and see if it performs. I'm going to line this up here where I want it, and then I'm going to drill to the top of the hole here. So I don't want to drill to the bottom because it can't go down any further, but of course it can go up. So I'll get that started. And then we'll go ahead and cut away while I drill this hole. So I've drilled that hole, and I have a screw here. Now this is a self-tapping screw, and I don't really like to use them completely as self-tapping, but of course you can do that if you don't have the right size drill bit. I have about 1 million different drill bits, so I can find the right size one, and I just went to the drill bit, which would have been one size too small for this. And then the self-tapper can actually finish it. We'll go ahead. Now I'm going to put that in there, but I'm not going to tighten it up all the way. I want it just a little loose. And I'm going to take a look at this, make sure that we're okay here. If you screwed up, now is the time to change it and not drill that second hole. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to get this as high as I can in that hole. And just like that, we're through. And then I'll go ahead and put this one in. Snug, but not tight. And there's a reason. Their inner hole is going to be a lot more difficult to drill. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to estimate that and pre-drill that and then remove this whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line that up as best as I can. Remember, go a little high, don't go too low. Okay, I've marked it. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Okay, and now I'm going to switch to a step bit. So this is a step bit right here, and it's well used, by the way, so it's not going to be the easiest job in the world. But we're going to go ahead and use it anyway. And what we'll do is we'll size this. And we want it to be the same size or even just a touch smaller. So I'll show you that. You can see that sitting there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go down to that step. So I can see which one that is. That's right there. And then we'll put that on, and if it's just a touch smaller, I think we'll be fine. So you see that we've come through our pre-drill, and I'm going to go ahead and finish drilling this, and I'll be right back. So you can see here that I've drilled down to where I wanted to, and if I need to go a little bit more, I can. But again, I think going just a little less is probably better. We'll go ahead and line that up and make sure it looks good. Now if you were going to put sealer on or some felt or something, this would be a point where you'd want to add that to the back of this. But again, since this is a test, we're not doing that quite yet. Now I'm going to get that in there and make sure I'm happy with it. Something else to mention is that this plate is flat, but you could also put a slight bend on it with a pair of pliers and get it to match the curve of the smoker just a little bit. But I think we're going to be fine for now. We're good to install and do the test. So I have the smoke controller right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert it just like that. But I want to be able to see these. This is the grill probe for temperature on the grill surface. I'll plug that in right where it says grill. And then this is the power supply, and I'll plug that in. I'm going to leave this unplugged for a second though. And then I can feed this through here. Let's take a look. One of the things that I am not a big fan of with the Weber Smoky Mountain is that's down there and most of the action is up here. So what we have to do, we have to feed it through like this and then run it through the grill grate for the most effective use. Now, of course, you can run it next to the grill grate if you want. There's enough room here, but what we're going to do for this test is we're just going to go ahead and put it right in the center because we want to get the most reasonable adjustment temperature that we can. That in here, and then lock it in just like that, so it's as close to the center of the grill as possible. And then we'll get this out of the way and over here. I went ahead and loaded the app previously, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in and give it time to start up. So I grabbed my phone and I turned on the app. Go ahead and push that button and the green light comes on, and then in a second this should come on right here. Go ahead and tap that, give it a minute to connect, and look, it's already connected. So I'm going to turn the fan into the off position. So the fan has stopped running. The current temperature of this probe is 66 degrees, and the target temperature is 225, which is my standard cooking temperature for something like a brisket or any kind of really low and slow cooking process. I'm going to bring this up here so you can get a little bit closer look at it. And throughout, I might pop up some screenshots up here on and off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part and I'm going to load some charcoal in here, and I'll be right back. So I got a small chimney full of charcoals, and I really wanted them going really well because I don't want them to continue to rise. I want the control to be completely done by the controller. If you see in here, I've laid out some charcoals. I'm using B&B today instead of my normal Kingsford. I did use Kingsford in here. We're going to go ahead and pour this in. And I didn't do a whole container full because I just want to do enough to run a really good test. I'm going to go ahead and set this on there, and there's plenty of charcoal in there for a good cook, just not a long one. Got that set in there. So I have my phone here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that fan back on. Fan is running. Set that right there. Close this right here. And then I'm going to close this down to what I would call a pencil width, or just slightly less. And the reason I call that is because we put a pencil in there, and that's how I set that. We're going to go ahead and let that run, and I'm going to watch the graph and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and screenshot it. You can see right here that the temperature bar was pretty flat, and now it's starting to go up. I'll go ahead and do a screenshot so that way you can see what I see. And we're already jumping up to 74 degrees. Let's go ahead and take a break, and I'm going to watch this up to 225 and see if this can hold it at that temperature. So we'll be right back. So I've ran the test so far about an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and take a screenshot here. And what you're going to see is you're going to see 225 is the current temperature and 225 is the target temperature. Now I want you to look up here with this yellow line, and you see how that yellow line kind of bounces up and down just a little bit? That's where your current temperature is, and it is trying to keep it by that red dotted line right there. Now down at the bottom here, you're going to see this blue line, and that is the fan speed. And you'll see that it's been going up to go the opposite of that. It looks like the movements are less and less as it goes along. So that's typical for a PID, so it's dialing itself in to get a real smooth feel for the temperature. Now, I think that as it goes, it'll get a little bit smoother, and I'm going to go ahead and run the test a little bit longer. So one thing I wanted to mention is that I seem to be losing connection to the device when I walk away. So this is pretty far from the house and the signal, so I'm assuming that the device is connecting directly to the phone. I thought originally that the device would be connecting to my central Wi-Fi, and then I would connect to it through a gateway, but it does not appear to be like that. So when I get too far away, I'm losing connection. And on that graph, I'm going to show you back here in the middle again, and you'll see a sharp drop in the blue line, and that's really a little gap from communication where I lost connection with the device. I came outside, I checked the device, and the fan was moving and sounded as if it was moving at the appropriate speed, which was about speed 60% or so. And so the device kept functioning perfectly normally. I think that what happens is it goes through this, and then when I walked away, it just stopped transmitting data to my phone. But Over more tests, I will figure that out exactly, and I don't see any performance issues with this at all. And again, I just have the top vent open, the bottom 3 vents are completely closed, and this thing is completely controlling it. So let's go to the current speed, and we are running at 27 right now, and the temperature of the device has dropped down to 221 degrees, and the speed will probably increase a little bit more. So it went up to 28, and it'll probably just bump it up just a little bit until it gets smooth. Now, from my past experience with any charcoal smokers, if they get too high, they can't come back down, because I mean, we're talking about burning charcoal. So really, once the charcoal's burning, there's not a lot you can do about that. So as far as my test goes, so far so good. I'm really happy with how it's working. I wanted to take this moment to say thank you to Inkbird for sending me this unit for free. And of course, I'll make sure that I note that in the description, so it's right off the top. You will find a link for this. If you have an Acorn or a Komodo type grill, you can easily just attach this right to the air intake vent. But if you don't, and you have a Weber Smoky Mountain or any other device that has a really good air seal, and I believe it possibly even work with the Weber kettle, but I haven't tested that yet, and I will. But this should easily control the air intake, so that way you can keep a really consistent, long, slow temperature. Again, we'll test that in another video, but this has been a success. The first video that I tested on a different smoker, too many air leaks, so it did not work. But this one, I'm really happy with the performance. So look for a few videos in the future on this. I think I'm gonna do something like a pork butt, because this is the pork butt king right here. And with this device, I think I'll be able to simply set it and forget it all day long. So thanks for watching, and check out the next video for a cook.